Hi there, my name is Gary Friedman, and welcome to the Friedman Archives blog. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 very unusual things that people are not talking about the A7R V from Sony. The reason I know about all these obscure things is because I'm the author of the best-selling book about the A7R V, 800 pages of ridiculous detail. Now, that's not because I like to write, it's because the camera is so complex. I mean, compared to the video cameras, which are even more complex, but this is probably the most complex one they've ever done. So it warrants it. There's a lot of features, they all interact with each other, there's a lot of nuance, it's all here. So, there's a lot to go over, but let's get started. So let's start with one of the simpler functions, bulb mode. Bulb mode is when you want to take time exposures. You put your camera on a tripod and you set your shutter speed to something manual, like this. And you want to dial the shutter speed down as much as possible. Look at the shutter speed on the very, very bottom there. 4 seconds, 15 seconds. After 30 seconds, there's another one called bulb. That is, if you're not in electronic shutter mode. I am in electronic shutter mode. Let's fix that. By the way, I've assigned the C1 button to be menu, so I can work the entire camera with one hand. It comes in very handy at times like this. Shutter is menu, shutter / silent, shutter type. Right now it's set to electronic shutter. To get bulb mode, you need mechanical shutter. And then, when you're dialing it one down, one less than 30 seconds, is bulb mode. Bulb mode will keep the shutter open for as long as you hold your finger on the button, or as long as you hold your finger on your remote control, whether it's wired or wireless. So with traditional bulb mode, you have to put your finger down and kind of count. Sony's given us a nice little tweak to this, where you can actually specify how long bulb mode will last, from anywhere from 1 to 990 seconds, and you access it like this. You hit the menu button, and it's under exposure, and on the first item, there's bulb timer settings. And here, first you have to be able to turn the feature on and off, so you turn it on, and then the one below it is exposure time. And here you can specify how many seconds you want bulb to go. 990 is as high as you can go. So 990 seconds is about 16 and a half minutes. Not bad. Great for astrophotography. The next one is a small thing. You know how you have a self-timer for stills? Now you have a self-timer for movies. And the way you invoke it is pretty straightforward. You move your exposure mode dial ring to movie mode, and then it's automatically assigned for you. The left button is assigned to movie self-timer, and you can turn it on and off. It's kind of hard to see what's going on. Let me set the exposure mode. Let me set the exposure compensation dial so it's a little dark so you can see what's going on. It's just simply on and off, and then when it's on, you can specify how many seconds. 3, 5, or 10. Not a big deal, but nice. The next feature isn't new. The A7R III had it, Pentax has had it, Olympus has had it, but it's a very cool feature, and if you'd like to make giant enlargements, it's for you. It's called Pixel-Shift multi-shooting. And the way it works is you put your camera on a rock-solid tripod, and the camera will take either 4 or 16 pictures. Each picture has the sensor shifting in either 1 pixel or a 1/4 pixel in each direction. And then when you get home, all these images get merged onto your computer for your cat. So you have a giant 240 megapixel image. It's wonderful. How did Sony improve on that? Well, you no longer need the rock-solid tripod. So the way to get to it is you hit menu, go to the shooting menu, go to drive mode, and then the very last option there is the Pixel-Shift multi-shooting. You have a few choices here. The default is off. Go down one and you have shoot 4 pictures, and then if you hit the left and right buttons, you can choose the interval between pictures, 1 second, 2 seconds, all the way up to 30 seconds. I usually go for the shortest. So that's 4 shots. You also have the choice of going with 16 shots. That one produces the 240 megapixel. That's the one you want. So you can go there and then press and hold the shutter release button. It will take 16 pictures. If you're moving it, if you've got slightly shaky hands, that's okay, because the same sensors that are in charge of the in-body image stabilization, they are keeping track of how much your hands moved, and it writes it into each of the images. When you get back to your desktop and you go with Sony's Imaging Edge desktop and merge it with that software, it'll take those movements into account, and it's as if you were moving it up and down, left and right with your own hand. So it's like you didn't need to do it mechanically anyway. That's amazing. I actually went out and tried this with the A7R III, which requires the rock-solid tripod, and then this, which I didn't use a tripod on. Both were handheld, one of which came out great. The other one, not so much. Now the next feature is kind of difficult to describe, but I'll do my best. There's a focusing mode called Direct Manual Focus, or DMF for short. Nobody knows what it does. It emulates what Canon lenses have been doing ever since the introduction of EOS back in the 1980s. Basically, once you focus on something and you get the focus confirmation, instantly your lens goes into manual focus mode, and you can tweak the focusing if you need to. That's great for shooting macro and the wind is blowing and you're shooting flowers, and you can tweak things without having to switch between AF and MF mode all the time. So it's a nice thing. So Sony has improved this feature a little bit also. It's called full-time DMF. And the difference is you don't have to keep your finger on the shutter release button in order for it to kick in. It's in manual focus mode all the time until you just press the shutter release button halfway. Then it goes to autofocus, and then it goes back to manual focus. You can tweak it if you need to. How do you invoke this function? Well, hit the menu button, the AF MF screen, and then it's on the second page there. There it is. You change it to on, and I usually keep it there. And that way it's just always in manual focus mode until you press the shutter release button halfway. The next one finally allows you to use your camera the same way you use your smartphone. With a smartphone, you touch the screen and it takes the picture. Sony has been very conservative in the way they implemented touch operation because they were always worried about accidental activation. But finally, actually, this isn't the first camera to have it. The A7R had it also. But you can now touch the back of the screen and not only specify your subject, your focus point, but also have it take the picture in one operation. And I can't show it to you because whenever I have the camera plugged into the screen, all the touch operations just kind of go away. But take my word for it, it works that way. There's also a new touch sensitivity feature, which is great for when you're using gloves. It's go down to here, touch operation, there it is. And over here, touch sensitivity. There's standard and there's sensitive. I tried it outdoors in the blizzard with gloves on. It makes a difference. Definitely use it. Next, there's the subject recognition mode, which everybody's talking about. The camera can recognize a bird, or a human, or a train, or an airplane, or a car, or an insect, and then you can specify how much of the insect, just the head, or just the head and the body, and you can get all sorts of permutations of what to. It gets ridiculously complex. But if you want to be able to very quickly change between human and animal, or bird, or car, instead of going menu driving, you can assign a function to a button and have it done very quickly. So the function you want to assign is called Recognition Target Select. I'm going to assign it to a button right now. Go to Operation Customize, and let's go in Stills mode, and the button I want to choose is the down arrow button, which you can get here. No, that's one of these. There it is. Let's choose Recognition Target Select. Now as soon as you highlight that, it's going to show you another screen. Which of these 7 subjects do you want to be able to cycle through every time you press the assign button? I'm going to remove airplane because I never had problems shooting airplanes in the past. Then I'm going to hit OK. Now, whenever I'm autofocusing, I can hit the down arrow button, which I just assigned, and as you can see on the bottom of the screen, it is cycling through all the different subjects that are available to you. So it's a very quick way to switch from one mode to the other. Now if you want the infinite detail part, menu, autofocus, subject recognition. Here the recognition target is animal bird, that's where I happen to stop. But for every one of these, you have a lot of sub-choices. Recognition priority setting, recognition part, which part of the bird do you want? The eye, the head, just the eye? So you can configure this when you're at home, and then when you're out in the field, let it do its magic. And this will increase your yield of usable shots tremendously. It's a great feature. The next feature is for people who love to shoot video and then upload it to social media right away, but they don't want to send the whole clip. Maybe just 15 seconds, maybe just a minute's worth. The Sony now lets you do it. The first thing you need to know is that in playback mode, there's a function called shot mark, and you should pre-assign it to a button. And that way, when you're playing it back and you happen to come across a video that you like, you hit the shot mark button and it saves it, it kind of highlights it. It's like marking it as your favorite. So when you're playing back your video and you come across a video you like, you add the shot mark in the middle of the clip that you want to be able to share. So once it's marked, when you go to upload it to your phone, you can specify how large of a clip, and the shot mark that you put will be the center of that clip. So you have to be able to mark it very carefully. Here's how you set that. Hit the menu button, hit the green, which is the smartphone connect, and select on camera and send. That's it. Now here you got a few other options as well. The bottom option is called movie with shot mark, and you can choose between 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or don't cut, which means send the whole thing to your phone. So this can save a little bit of bandwidth and a little bit of time. The next two features are not my favorites, but I'm sharing them with you anyway because nobody's talking about these. The first one tries to solve the problem of flicker or banding whenever you're shooting under LED lights. I can show you an example of what it looks like. I'm going to set my shutter speed to something ridiculously fast, like a 500th of a second, which is not unusual if you're shooting sports under stadium lights. In fact, usually you're going about 1,000th of a second, but just use a very fast shutter speed and take a picture. I'm still in Pixel-Shift multi-shooting mode. Let's fix that, shall we? Okay, turn off Pixel-Shift multi-shooting, camera, drive mode, Pixel-Shift movie, turn it off. Great. Now I want my shutter to go be electronic because this doesn't happen with mechanical. So shutter/silent, shutter type is, right now it's mechanical, let's set it to electronic. That's where you're going to get the banding because it's an interference pattern between the way the sensor is scanned and the non-continuous light from the LEDs. There you go. Yuck. Okay, there's a lot of traditional ways to solve this. The most traditional way is to slow down your shutter speed so you don't get the interference pattern. Now this can be dreadful if you shoot in sports because to be able to get it down enough, that's 100th of a second. That's a little bit low. Let me get it down to like a 50th of a second. Still get it. Here's 20th of a second. Okay, 20th of a second is gone. Well, who shoots sports at a 20th of a second? That's useless. Another tool to address this problem is called variable shutter speed. The idea is you should be able to up or lower your shutter speed just a fraction of a speed so that you might not get the interference pattern which is causing this banding. The feature for doing that, under shutter silent, you got anti-flicker settings. They call it flickering, banding, whatever. It's the same thing. It's an interference pattern. So the first thing you can do is hit variable shutter and turn it on, and then below that you have choices of what to set your shutter to. Now look at the very bottom of the screen with the number in orange, and I'm increasing the shutter speed right now, 40. These are increasing by fractions of a stop. The amount it changes per click is not consistent. The idea is you should be able to adjust these a fraction of a stop and have the banding attenuated. Let's try it. See what happens. Okay, at an 80th of a second, you're still getting a lot. Let me one click lower, 2 clicks lower, 3 clicks lower. It's a real trial and error process. And you ask yourself, well, this is ridiculous. I'll be here all day. The game will be over by the time I find the right shutter speed. Why can't the camera look at the light, analyze what the frequency is, and choose the shutter speed so it won't interfere with it? That's what this feature does. It's called the Anti-Flicker TV Scan. And like so many of the great features of this camera, it has to be assigned to a button first. On this camera, I've assigned it to the AEL button. And the way it's supposed to work, you fill the frame with your lights, hit the button to which this function has been assigned, and it will choose a shutter speed for you. Then you take the picture and voila! Not bad. It doesn't always work, so your mileage may vary, but it can sure save a lot of time. Finally, number 10. Here's a feature I cannot show you because I'm not set up for it. I talked about it in a recent blog post. It's called focus bracketing. The idea behind focus bracketing is if you're taking macro photos of a tiny little object using a macro lens, it's difficult to get everything in focus. The traditional way of solving the problem is to do what's called focus bracketing, where you take a picture and then adjust the focus a fraction of an inch, take another picture, adjust the focus a fraction, take another picture, and then you have a whole stack of images, only a tiny sliver of which is actually in focus. Then you merge it in Photoshop. Photoshop will take only the sharp parts and merge it together. It's great. Olympus has a feature where it does everything for you and merges it in the camera. Fujifilm has a feature where it'll do the bracketing for you, but you have to merge it on your desktop yourself. Up until recently, Sony never had a feature to do this. Now it does. And you know what? I don't like it. And the reason I don't like it is because there's no guidance whatsoever on to how to set all the different variables. You can find it in the drive mode menu. And the drive mode has the usual things: single shooting, continuous shooting, and then you can adjust all these things using the left and right buttons. Self-timer, continuous bracketing, focus bracket, there it is. Now, if you hit the right arrow button right now, you'll have a step width, which is how much to change focus between shots. This will vary with every lens. And then you have the number of shots to take. How many? I don't know. And you got a 3-digit variable for that. And then you have other variables that you can change. But the fact is, there's no guidance at all regarding what to set these things to. You're supposed to use trial and error. Well, with the manual method, you only have to do it once. And it's right. And you're not overshooting. Anyway, hooray for Sony for finally implementing this. But it is not better than doing it manually. If you like the way I explain things and you want to learn more about the nuances of your camera, I highly recommend picking up your own copy of the Sony A7R 5 book from the Friedman Archives. There's a link in the description below, as well as a link to the video which shows you how to do focus bracketing manually, which I did a couple of months ago. That's it. Thanks very much. Don't forget the Friedman Archives has ebooks for all your favorite mirrorless platforms, including Fujifilm and Olympus and Sony. Be well.